Here's a wee science bit. The largeness of Scotland is quite mind-blowing, and I think the difficulty is, wherever you grow up, you think it's normal, you think it's average. I thought it was pretty normal when I grew up in Belfast to earn a shilling by sitting in strange men's cars outside libraries in the centre of Belfast, because when they went to put their library books back, if someone was in the car, they didn't tow it away. I made a lot of money that way, but I mean, that seemed perfectly normal. Explosions were normal. It was normal to be very careful what you put in your handbags, ladies, in case you got stopped, or when you got stopped at checkpoints. Many things were normal. Here we are in Scotland thinking that 162,000 people as the average local authority is normal. Huh. You know, when I've got enough time and energy one day, I'll do someone under the Trades Descriptions Act on that, because that's not local. That defies the word local. It's not. That's a stunner, isn't it? Except that, of course, having such the delivery tier, I should say as well, I'm not slagging off councillors, because I think they have a terribly difficult task trying to, in effect, be all the connection they cannot possibly hope to be, because their cover areas are too big. But community councils, equally, community councils have no statutory authority for anything. They don't even have a limit on the size of elections, which means that if people just want to be on a community council, they can be, and that can mean little fiefdoms. It can have bunches of gatekeepers. It can mean it doesn't feel very democratic. And do you know what it makes you conclude? That you didn't want more of it. And that's the problem about badly configured, really local stuff. If it doesn't work well and it just seems like Alan Partridge or Smashy and Nicey playing predictable hits to undemanding people, if that's all local means, you don't want more of it. Of course you don't. And we go on as we are at the moment, trusting everything that people will never meet. But if you look at where the money is in society, an average budget of £400 a year for a community council tells you everything you need to know about where community is in Scotland. It's nowhere. And there you go. You can map, actually, the book does, turnouts and local and the ability to tax raise in local areas. Let me give you an example. In Sweden, you need to earn over £35,000 a year before you pay any tax to central government. That's a bit, what? Anyone who earns less than that simply pays all their income tax to their local municipality. And why wouldn't you? Because all the things it gets spent on are in your local area. If you ask any of the Nordics and most of the North European countries if they can understand our system, where we pay everything to the centre and then they pay a little bit back and then they pay a little bit back, they think we're bonkers. They don't know why we've accepted it. I don't know why we've accepted it. And they can predict the outcomes. Passive people. And sure enough, if you try to marry the amount of money raised by councils and the turnout at elections, James, it's awfully similar. When you get to areas which have got a high amount of local cash raised, you get a very high turnout without people having to vote. When you get what we have, you get a 38% turnout, and you crow about it because it was 8% better than the English. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. I'm interested in looking at ourselves as a potentially small European country, and we should be aiming for the averages of that which we live amongst. And that's not good enough, but it tells a story. And the Scottish House Social Attitude Survey last year asked people if they felt they had a say in their local communities. Only 22% of people said they thought they did. That's appalling. Because, you know, look at the amount of people with a lot of talent, time, contribution who feel they can do diddly squat where they live. And do you know what happens where you live? Everything. Your kids learn fairness there. You make friends there, or you don't. You understand what housing is or isn't. Every thought thoughts you have about how things can be better, it all starts in front of your nose. And yet, inquiries suggest that the professional classes, who may well be represented here down at Exam 1, have fewer local contacts than the average Scot. So people who live lives less local are planning for everyone else lives where local just doesn't matter at all, and we're going along with it. This then feeds its way through to who feels they could ever stand for election, who want to. This is the proportion that stand for election in Scotland, 1 in 2,071. In Norway, the proportion of people who stand for election, 1 in 81. It's not so strange. Most people know somebody who is a local municipal councillor. In Iceland, if somebody thinks there's a better candidate who isn't on the ballot paper, you can write their name in and they're morally obliged to do it. I'm grateful to Andy Whiteman for doing the maths, it's in my strength. But if you start to look at the size of municipalities and the number of them, you'll see that Scotland's weird. This is not normal. It's not normal to live like this. And it's too strongly correlated with all forms of damaging passivity for us to overlook it for any longer. So these, just to recap, then are the things that I think arise from the way that we're working at the moment: the largeness, the tolerance of inequality, and an uncertainty about entitlement. When I was in Oslo and was joining up with the university, I needed to be sure I had IT cover while I was there for 3 months, after I learned Norwegian and found nobody would speak to me in it because their English is better. So I was there in the IT department in Oslo, feeling a little bit defensive, the way you do if you think you're going to be knocked back, which is all the time here. And I had a sheaf of paperwork. Oh boy, did I have paperwork. I had professors coming out of Oxford. I had letters from important people saying that I needed to be connected to this IT system, that the stuff I was doing was definitely credible, lots of them. And I was standing waiting for the guy to kind of put my case through, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I mean, there was no evidence anything was going wrong, but he wasn't fast enough, he wasn't... So finally I took the sheet out and started handing these letters over. Professor so-and-so says that I need to be joined up. Professor so-and-so. He looked at me and he said, "You don't need to try so hard. You're entitled to this." And I've got to say to you, it was a big moment. Because I thought, that's the grabbiness that comes with being uncertain about whether you are entitled to things in this life. And I, who've had a pretty comfortable upbringing, should not be feeling like that. And I am. We're not certain what we're entitled to because there's always an entitled bunch of people who are in there first. Whether we talk about a new constitution for Scotland, there's an entitled bunch of lawyers. We talk about any walk of life, and the entitled naturally form themselves to decide how it will be run. Who will consult us? This is an old-fashioned and top-down way of thinking, and again, it's one that has to go. And the presumption of incapacity